Okay, welcome. This is the independent study version of Security Trends and Malware Analysis. I'm Emmett Gray. We're going to do a short PowerPoint presentation to introduce you to the course. So let's begin. So welcome. I'm going to try to make this kind of fun and entertaining. It's actually a pretty nice course. This course is designed to basically teach you everything you need to know about how malware works and therefore how you can defend against it. In a face-to-face context, there's an awful lot of hands-on stuff. I mean, I demonstrate the use of these tools, and then, but I'm not going to be able to do that here. You're going to have to do that on your own at home. It is somewhat in-depth, a lot of stuff to cover, but I tend to talk about, philosophies and concepts, not memorization. So this is an independent study, which means you have no lecture at all, but you do have lecture notes. And so the lecture notes themselves and the hands-on notes basically means you can do practically everything at your house. This is a fun course. A lot of people like this course. And please don't use what you've learned here to do evil, because yes, learning how malware works also inadvertently provides you information on actually how to make malware. So the textbook, Advanced Malware Analysis, is a halfway decent book. You'll need that, but about 20% of the material is outside of the book, so the book alone won't do you any good. So here's where I would normally say, this is a lecture-heavy class, and I tell lots of stories, and quizzes and assignments often deal with the things that are done in lecture. Well, that's true. I mean, for example, I'll demonstrate the use of one particular analysis tool in class and have you do it in a hands-on environment, and then turn right around the next week and ask you to do practically the same thing in a homework assignment. So without having seen it happen and without someone guiding you and holding your hand, it could be a little tough. Could be. So quite frankly, some of the test questions, I mean, this is hypothetical, but it could be, what was the name of the tool we used to describe this? And you go, heck, I don't know, I wasn't there. So yeah, this could be problematic, and I may have to make some accommodations. We'll just kind of wait and see. So requirements, since you're doing this remote, obviously everything is done through Canvas. You need access to a computer. Basically a Windows-based computer is really what you need. To do the Canvas stuff, you can do anything, an iPad or phone, for God's sake. But doing the classroom stuff, no, you're going to need a real machine. You're also going to need a reliable internet connection because, of course, if you're doing, a quiz or something and you lose the internet, that would be really, really bad. So, yes, you are going to need an honest-to-God Windows-based machine, an x86 architecture, 64-bit. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. If you're somewhere near the university, that you can go there and use computers. For Mac users, there's several options here. So if you have a Mac or one of the newer Copilot style laptops, for an older version of a Mac, you can have VirtualBox or Parallels. For the newer one, there's one called UTM. And if all else fails, you can always go for a cloud-based solution where you install Windows 10 yourself. So typically what happens is on week 7, I have the students install VirtualBox and Windows 10 to use as a platform for doing some of the more dangerous things. Some of the things we do at the beginning of the class don't require administrator rights at all, but after week 7 or 8, that's when we need admin rights. Instead of messing up your machine, I have you do it on a virtual machine. For you guys, you're probably going to need to start off with doing things from a virtual machine, because a typical class environment would be grab this file and drop it on the desktop and double click on it and see how the virus works. Well, I don't want you doing that on your real machine if I'm not there to kind of guide you on how to clean up afterwards. So please do everything from a virtual machine. So in order to get Windows 10, you need a real honest-to-God license. And I don't want you to burn one of your existing licenses. So we have this thing called Azure DevTools for Teaching. That's a horrible name, but hey. And you can go there and get a Windows 10 ISO file, which is like an image of a CD-ROM, plus the activation key. And then you could use that to install your own copy of Windows 10, and then from there you can do whatever the heck you want without fear of messing up your own machine. Okay, so expectations. So you're going to learn an awful lot about malware design and how it works. Awful lot about the inner workings of the computer. Yeah, big time. I mean, to understand how these flaws, how this software, exploits a flaw, we need to be talking about flaws in the operating system. And then you get to apply your knowledge and theory by finding things. Like the term project is a really nasty virus that you have to install. You have to run the virus on your machine and then figure out what it's doing. You don't really need to be a computer expert to do well in this class, although quite frankly it would help. If I start talking about APIs and DLLs and your eyes start glazing over, well, then you probably need to metaphorically raise your hand and say, hey, what was that again? But no, we're not going to be doing any programming. So we're going to cover 13 chapters in the book. So this is a slide I show at the beginning of every class that basically just makes sure that we're eye to eye on how this thing works. So in grade school, it was very common that you would, memorize multiplication tables or memorize state capitals and stuff like that. That's not really learning. That's the blue. I'm over here in the green. We're in college now. I want you to implement, solve, use, demonstrate. Yeah, demonstrate. Like we do something in class, and then you have an assignment where you have to do it on your own. Yeah. Go to this file, extract this DLL from it, and then analyze the DLL inside the file. Yeah. You're going to have to do this stuff. So it's not just knowing stuff. You're going to have to demonstrate that you can physically do it. So anyway, the whole point here is the blue is usually like a what question, like what's the capital South Dakota? Which quite frankly, in my opinion, the correct answer is, I don't know, I'll look it up. Because we don't really need to be doing memorization these days. In the real world, if you've got a job and you're living, you're working in a cube farm, rows and rows of cubes, on the wall of one of those cubes is going to be cheat sheets. The SQL guy is going to have a cheat sheet for SQL. The programmers are going to have coding cheat sheets. It's perfectly normal to not have to memorize stuff. So just to dream this home one more time, what versus why. What is all about remembering stuff? I forgot this, or having cheat sheets and application, going online and getting information, Googling stuff. That's what. But why is an awful lot different. Why one choice over another? So if I ask you, what's the capital of South Dakota? That's a what. But if I said, why did the capital move to Austin? Now that's good, okay? Because I'm not asking you when it occurred. I'm asking you why. Why did it move? That's a good story. And good stories are easy to remember. Memorization, I don't care about that. But remembering some cool stuff, yeah. And then what are the long-term effects? I talk about this when we talk about, backup and restore philosophies. And it's like, you may think this is a great backup strategy until it comes time for you to do a restore. And then you find out you've been doing it wrong the entire time. So yeah, there are some long-term effects. Okay, so course requirements. There's 2 major exams, a midterm and a final, typically in a face-to-face class. You'll be doing this in the classroom and have an entire review session. Well, I'm sorry that's not going to be available to you guys, although I will release a list of topics that's going to appear in the exam. There's 6 quizzes or take home and 6 assignments, and are obviously take home. So about 2 weeks notice. In other words, they're released 2 weeks before they're due, quizzes 1 week before they're due, and then the term project where you get to analyze an infected system. Okay, so exams are 12.5% each. There's 2 of them. 5 of these at 6 points, or 6 of these at 5 points. 6 of these at 5 points, and the term project is a whopping 15%. That's quite a lot. That's 1.5 letter grades, right? Okay. So basically, the term project is, can you do all the things that we've done in class? That's what it's all about. Can you perform? Okay. So this is kind of an eye chart, so don't bother reading the whole thing. But what I'm after is that something is due every single Thursday. You don't have to think about it. It's just like, hey, is today Thursday? And if the answer is yes, that means something is due every single Thursday. It's either quiz or an assignment, quiz or assignment. It kind of flips back and forth between the two. Okay. So how much work is this outside of the classroom, so to speak? I'm guessing about 1 hour, maybe hour and a half, something like that. After, so very fast paced. There's lots of stuff. About one chapter per week. Some of the tasks, of course. Task or assignment due every single week. So let's talk about the major exams and quizzes. So the midterm and the final, 25 questions, 2 extra credits, and so you have an hour and 15 minutes. If you do the math, that's like 2 hours and 47 seconds per question. Typically enough, but not enough for you to stop and go, oh wait, let me go look that up. You're probably going to have to study for these things. You can't just do it from, looking up. Take-home quizzes, obviously, done at home, open book. Most people can do it in less than an hour, easy. And then my lecture notes. Now, my lecture notes are designed to keep me on track while I'm doing a lecture, which you're not going to get. But it's a list of the top, it's like an outline of all the things I'm going to say. And I make sure I'm covering everything and don't miss anything or don't get things out of order. So it's really just for me. But I do release those at lecture notes and have them available to you. So when it comes time to create the quiz, so it comes time for me to write quiz number 2. Well, I don't look at the book at all when I'm writing quiz. Instead, I bring up my lecture notes and I try to find things that I think are memorable. I go, ooh, this is a good one. This right here says, if they can understand this, then I know that they're getting the material. This is a worthy question to ask. Ooh, here's another one. So if I'm looking at the lecture notes to come up with these quiz questions, don't you think you might be a good idea for you to be looking at those very same lecture notes to study for, or perhaps even have handy while you're taking the quiz? Yeah, that might be a good idea, huh? Assignment. So reading comprehension is always the big thing. If there's a word in there, it's probably because I wanted it in there. And I'm always just amazed at the people. I'll have an assignment that says, do the following 4 things. And they'll turn a document in and say, okay, here are the 3 things you asked for. And I'm going, well, what happened to part 4? Oh, I didn't see that. I'm like, oh, man. Anyway, you're mostly going to be submitting Word documents, okay, with screenshots of things that you're supposed to be doing. I have a standard file naming convention I want you to follow. It's like this. It's CIS4348 spaced, and then whatever it is you're turning in, space, and then last name and dot and first name. So it's 2 and exactly 2 spaces. Now, nod your head like you're listening, right? Okay? By the way, when it comes time for you to submit your first assignment, I'm going to instantly be able to tell if you are capable of reading and following instructions. I'll be able to tell immediately because I'll be able to look at the file naming convention and go, no, they weren't paying attention. Or, yeah, this person's actually following instructions. By the way, reading and following instructions is probably a very useful skill regardless of what job you end up with, right? That's a pretty decent skill you need to have. So multiple submissions are typically allowed. For example, you can turn in an assignment. I'll scribble on it and give it back to you, and you can turn it in again and again and again. Cool. And do your own work. We're not doing any group work or anything like that. So paraphrasing and plagiarism. So we have a plagiarism checking tool that produces a thing called a similarity score. What that basically means is if you're okay if you have like less than or equal to 35% of the material being from some other source. So paraphrasing, plagiarism. So, I would expect, look, this is a senior level course, right? And you've been doing this for quite some time. I would think that you kind of sort of know what plagiarism is all about. But sometimes I have been surprised. There's only one rule for plagiarism. It's kind of simple. Are you ready? Here it goes. Don't use other people's words. That's it. That's all it is. That's the only rule. You can't go copy something and paste it in your document. That is considered plagiarism. Now, I'm going to stop this video for just a second and pick it up in part 2. So hold that thought.